Choosing paper for bird paintings. Paper, paint, brushes. If you had to choose the most important element, it would have to be paper. Yeah, so do we choose cold pressed or hot pressed? Do we go for the most expensive, or can we settle for something less? Today we'll be experimenting with 5 different papers. My name's Annika and I'm going to take you through the process and we'll discover what works best in regards to how the paint applies to the paper, whether it repels it or absorbs it, or whether the paint sits on top. We'll look at how easily we can lift paint, whether it's wet or dry, or staining or non-staining paint. We'll look at layering and also adding some shadows and blending them out. Your choice of paper will also depend on how you want to paint, whether it's detailed or abstract, or somewhere in between. And if you like painting backgrounds or you don't like to paint backgrounds, that also makes a difference. Stay till the end and you might be, or I'm sure you will be, pleasantly surprised. Today we're exploring 5 different papers for best results for birds. I'm going to do these experiments as evenly and as the same as I can on each and every paper to get the most reliable result. But you do have to try this for yourself. I have Baohong hot pressed and cold pressed. I have Arches hot press and cold press. And I also have a surprise here, which is Montmartre 300 GSM rough. Now, I know why rough. Well, because they didn't have cold pressed or hot pressed when I was there. But the other side of it is much like cold press, really. But I don't know if it's sized the same. And because of that reason, I'm only using the intended correct side. I'm using an Easy Shade Colors paintbrush. I have no idea where I got it from, but that's what I'm using. It's just a Taklon round brush. Okay, let's try some really quick birds and see how it feels. I'm going to have to tell you how it feels, really, because you have to feel it for yourself. We're going to end up with 5 little paintings, and I'll be making high-resolution scans of these for you to study, and these will be available through our newly launched membership. It's just for those who really want to get stuck into the nitty-gritties. For a modest $4.99, you'll really be supporting this channel and making it possible for me to continue with my experiments and findings. And also, it's a great club for us to get to know each other better. So let's get going. So I'm washing my brush. Here's my sponge. And here I have a whole pool of buff titanium. I'm going to do a simple D shape like this. Now already Baohong cold pressed, you can see how I have to go over a second time. Even though my brush was filled with paint, the paper seems to repel the paint a little bit. So that's very important. It's not as absorbent as some papers. For the head, let's just round this off like that and give him a little beak. Now I wash my brush, tap it out, and I'm coming in with some phthalo blue on the head, on the back. I'll extend into a tail, and now let's give him a wing. Let's come down with this, and this here is a little bit of a sideways lip shape. Sometimes my lips go like that. See the lips? Right. I always used to be very embarrassed. Okay, now that we've done that, coming in with some burnt sienna and coming down here. Not too bad. Now I have here a General's Sketch and Wash soluble black pencil. I am going to put a line straight through the beak, do a long triangle, see the triangle, and then here only coming halfway, and then an eye just above the end of the beak. That's all I want to do for now, and maybe we'll give him 2 feet. We're going to do this on all 5 papers. As you can see, it's not going to take long, and it'll be a great experiment. Oh yes, what we need to do with this one is I need to wash my brush and dry it, and I need to lift out of wet paint something out of the burnt sienna, wash my brush and dry it, and lift something out of the phthalo. Okay, we can move on to the next one now, which happens to be the Montmartre rough. Okay, let's see what this can produce. I'm painting on the D shape, similar to the cold press Baohong, in as much as it went on very dryish. You need more paint in there. And now I'm going to round off the head, put in a beak, and now wash my brush, come in with some phthalo and round off the back, extend a tail and a little wing like that. I need to dry off my brush a bit more. Drying my brush and washing it, and now with a little bit of burnt sienna. Now quickly a line, a triangle, and half a line, and then an eye. Now I need to wash my brush, drying it, but I'm also drying it on some paper towel. I'm lifting a swipe out of the burnt sienna and a swipe out of the back. You know, that's actually quite remarkably good. I'm surprised with the Montmartre paper. All right, now next one. This now is Arches cold press. This has to be a winner at all times because it just is. So look, a D shape, and the head and the beak, washing my brush and drying it, and coming in with some phthalo, extending for the tail, it's very absorbent. It's more absorbent than the Baohong. And now for a bit of, oops, this seemed to be a bit runny. Washing my brush and drying it. And I'll pull out some burnt sienna and lift. And because this is a little bit pooly up here, I might just do that. So everything, you know, we're trying to keep everything the same, but it's so easy for it not to be. Triangle, little curve, and a smile. Oh yes, his feet. Now I'm trying some Arches hot press. Let's see what happens here. Here's my buff titanium. It goes on super smoothly, and I don't have to pick up any extra paint. Now I will for the head. Wash my brush and dry it. Come in with some phthalo. Round off the back, the tail. Now, as with all hot press papers, the paint does sit on there a little bit longer. And look at the way it dries at different rates, or this bit here down here isn't shiny at all anymore. Okay, washing my brush and drying it, and coming in with a bit of burnt sienna. Washing, drying, I'm going to lift some. Washing, drying. Picks up very well. The pencil goes on extremely smoothly. A real pleasure, that one is. There's the eye. It even goes really well onto the dry paper. Now we're using Baohong hot press. This is the last one. A D shape. Also managed to do the whole D shape with one load. And the head and the beak. Washing the brush, drying it, picking up some blue. Rounding off, extending for the tail. Now again you can see that it does dry at a different pace. Whereas when we were on the cold press paper, it was more unified. Washing my brush and drying it and coming in with some burnt sienna. So now the pencil. There's our little birdie. Okay, oh yes, we need to lift out of this one, so I'm washing my brush and drying it. And one lift out of this, and one lift out of that. That lifted really well. Okay, so at this stage, they will need to dry, but let's have a look at what we have. We have our Baohong hot press, our Baohong cold press. We're going to compare if the colours are the same or if they've dulled off or done anything different. Ashes and Montmartre. Okay, let's leave them to dry and come back and do our next experiment. Have you been struggling with certain little things in your painting, whether pooling or this or that, streakiness, or wondering why your brush doesn't work the same way? It could well have been the paper. In most cases it is. Let me know in the comments below and we'll get to the bottom of it. For the next part of our exercise, let's have a look what happens if we try and dissolve the General's Aquarelle Sketch and Wash pencil. So I've got the Baohong cold press here. Okay, it's dissolving somewhat, but it is a little bit harder because the paper is rougher. I will very gently go over the legs here. Okay, we'll leave that. Go on to the next one. This is Ashes hot press. I've had to wipe my brush dry again. Wipe it dry. And just a little spreading out of this. And that looks nice and smooth. Now going over to our Baohong. Wash my brush, pat it dry. Pencils always have a way of being much smoother on hot press paper. And the legs. Okay. Now we're moving on to our dark horse, the Montmartre. It's not too bad. I'm actually really impressed with the Montmartre paper for the price that it is. And this is Ashes cold press. This one just always works great. It's still rather smooth. And looking at the legs. Now, let's do the next part of our experiment, which is a little bit of layering over the blue. I've mixed a little bit of green into my mix, adding a little bit of water. So this is like if you had mixers between 1 and 10, with 1 being the weakest, like water. This would be like about a 4. Or you could say milky coffee. I am now going to put a few scalloped feathers on his back, just like that. Maybe just like that. And maybe in there. He looks cute. Okay, we'll see how all these go. I did try to paint them all as equally as possible, but here the burnt sienna spread into the blue. It's made it look a little bit dirty in there. I will come around with my scalloped feathers and a Liz mantle. Now for the Ashes hot press. It's very nice and clean. It's easy to work with. See how here it's lighter than there? I don't want to go over it again though, so I'll just have to leave it. And now going to the Montmartre, really picking up as much paint as I can. This is also seeped into the blue. But, you know, I think that the colours are quite vibrant. And the last one that we have is our Baohong hot press. Now let's give them a little bit of shadow to the body part. So in my burnt sienna, I have mixed in a little bit of blue. I picked up a bit of cerulean blue, and I'm going to add it. I'm not going to touch the green. I'm just going to add it under there. Under there. I'll wash my brush and blend it out. Could be a little bit stronger, so I'll grab some more cerulean blue. Becomes a bit more grey. That's that one. Ashes cold press. I've put that in with a clean wet brush, blend it out. I feel like I want to put a little bit more in. And I'll do the same to my previous one. This is Baohong cold press. I can tell you now that this one is not my favourite for birds. It's not bad, it's just not my favourite. Montmartre, the rough. Washing my brush, drying it, blending it out, and I'm coming back in to give it a little dab more. Okay, and the last one that we have is our Ashes hot press. I've washed my brush and just blending it out, and now also coming in with a little bit of strengthening there. Okay, look, I've tried to do these as equally as possible, and if we have a look at them, it's like a flock of birds. Every paper, they all have their own qualities. Thing we have to do, and that's to see how dry paint lifts off. I will just start with the first one in front of me. Montmartre. I'm using a Rosemary & Co. short flat Shiraz because, first of all, it's a flat brush. Flat brushes are always great for lifting. Second, it's a short brush, so it's got a little bit more power to it, more oomph, more strength, and that's why I like it. So I am now lifting out of the Montmartre. Give him a little highlight here near the eye. I'll do it again. Now, mind you, this top bit is a staining colour, so it didn't come out very easily. but this is not a staining colour, so let's see how the throat goes. Okay, that has lifted a bit better. Now to the Baohong hot press. I did go onto that one twice, so I better do the same here. Okay, a little bit, and there's our throat. Ashes cold press. Staining colours have very, very small particles when the pigment is crushed, and so they really seep deep into the paper, and that's why they're hard to lift. Baohong cold press. Okay, so what am I missing? I'm missing Ashes hot press. Twice, like I did it on all the others. Better get a clean tissue though. Do you know, some of these results are not what I expected. If I have a look at all these, first of all, the Baohong cold press, I wouldn't use it for birds, full stop. If we look at the vibrancy of the colours, I'm looking and wondering, when you're lifting, leave the water on there for a bit, let's say for a minute. If we were to do this, look, let's wet that, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now it's about 30 seconds or so later. It's just not straight away, right? I'm coming back to the Baohong hot pressed, and look, that has lifted much better. Now, which was my next one? We'll go with the Ashes cold pressed. Ashes hot pressed. Montmartre. That one's lifted a lot better. I can't really tell which one I did first or last or second. Sorry. But as you can see, if you wait a little bit longer, it will lift a lot easier, even if it's staining. Now, see how on this one, this looks a little bit rough here? I'll see how I can blend that out. Because the paint tends to sit on top a bit, it's really easy to blend things out. But I guess it didn't have to happen in the first place. And on this one as well. But again, that's the whole thing. On hot press, it tends to sit around a little bit, and it tends to make some of these harsher lines. That is the whole thing. So whether it's Baohong or Ashes, paint sits on top a little bit longer, which can create a few little paddle marks. Cold press paper, cold press, blends out smoother. The Ashes cold press has turned out better than that one. And you know what, as a final result, this Montmartre rough is pretty good for the price. Let's see how these papers react to detail. So here I have my Baohong cold pressed one, and I'm just going to put in a few little lines. I have here my greeny colour, to which I'm going to add some ultramarine blue. I might try it on a piece of paper first. I might add a little bit more pigment to that to make it a little bit richer. Okay, so I swirl my brush around. The rolling of the brush helps to keep a nice point on the brush. Let's say we added a few little feathers, maybe like that. It's not too bad, but when you actually feel it, it tends to go on a little bit drier because we have a very textured surface. Next one, Arches cold press. This one goes on much smoother because even though it's cold press, it still has a very smooth feeling to it. This is always a winner. No matter what you do, you can't go wrong with this one. Now we have our Baohong hot pressed. Also goes on very smooth. And we'll put in some scallops. Next one is our Arches hot press. It's very smooth and the brush can move. You know, if you want to splay your brush a little bit or press firmer to get a wider stroke or lift to get a thinner stroke, hot press paper makes it very easy for that. And now we have our Montmartre rough, which is surprisingly smooth for a rough paper. It really is the dark horse on this occasion, and the strokes are going on beautifully. So it's very impressive. Okay. The takeaway from that one is anything except the Baohong cold press for this one. The others work really well. Okay. Now the last thing that we're looking at is backgrounds. Yes, so this is very important. And for the backgrounds, I'm using a number 3 Paulina Bright mop brush. If you would like to paint a background, these papers vary a lot. We will start with the one that we have here, Baohong hot press. Okay, I'm going to add some phthalo blue to this little puddle here. And we'll make another little puddle with some more green in it. Now, we can run out of paint really, really quickly. And the first thing with a background is don't run out of paint. Otherwise, you're in big trouble, especially on hot press paper, because it leaves marks like nothing else. Now, see, that's quite a lot of paint there, which is what we need. So now let's just work our way around the bird like this. And as you can see, maybe it's hard to see, but when I put more pressure on the brush, there's more water or more paint. When I lift it, there's less. So we end up having little puddles, whether we want to or not. Now, just because I'm doing a background here, it doesn't mean that, you know, we have to be thinking, yes, this is just for backgrounds. No, this is for any area inside your painting. Now, let's add, I can't go on with this green because it may be too wet. Looking at it, I'd say yes. So I'm going to go for some creamier green, and I'm just going to add a few little bits like that. Now, can you see that there are areas where this bit has no shine? Therefore, that is drying at a much faster pace than, for example, this or this. So because this hasn't seeped into the paper, there's a big chance that it will leave a little telltale line, like a cauliflower. So let's put it aside and see. Okay, now I'm going on to the Baohong cold pressed. Here's my bluey green. The first thing you notice is that there's less patchy areas. Even though I'm coming in with more paint, everything seems to be of the same consistency. That's what you get with cold pressed paper. Like that. And now some thicker green just to do that. And I'll put it aside. Now we're on to, let's go for our Montmartre. The paint is going on very nicely. And a little bit more over here. The paint looks of even consistency, and now just a few speckles of this and that. Okay, so what are we up to? Ashes hot pressed and Ashes cold pressed. Okay, 2 more to do. It will be done in no time. Getting a little bit more paint. Now, here's something to consider. When you're working on hot press, like this one here, see how we have different areas of paint? Some paint is thicker looking than others. It's because it's sitting on top longer. It dries at an unusual pace. And if we were to work on this on an angle, it would be far better, because I'll just put a little bit more paint on here, because it would run down. So if you were working on hot press paper and doing any kind of a background, you would want to work on an angle, tilted paper. And now Ashes cold pressed. The paint absorbs into the paper and will give you an even appearance, especially on tilted paper. I've done a video in the past on water control and having your paper tilted. Whenever you tilt your paper and you're doing a background wash, then you'll find that the paint runs down the page and doesn't create telltale lines. If you'd like to see more in that video, have a look up here in the corner. Okay, now I really tried to use the same consistency of paint on each and every one of these samples. And as you can see, the results are a bit different. Starting over here with the Baohong hot press, my paper wasn't tilted, so I can see that there are blooms forming. That's all great if I want them, but if I don't want them, then it's not great. On Baohong, the paint has just spread differently, and I don't know if it's just me, but I think that the colors in this instance are far better on the Baohong hot press and on all the others except for that one. I don't know why, but that's just how I feel. Look how well the Montmartre reacted to all the experiments. I'm really, really impressed. If you'd like to paint birds with detail, fine art or abstract, with or without backgrounds, go for Ashes cold press. You cannot go wrong. Or if you're on a budget, Montmartre 100% cotton paper 300 GSM proves to be a real winner. Hot press paper, either Ashes or Baohong, is smooth, great for detailed work and easy lifting, but requires you to get used to the way the paint is absorbed into the paper. The only paper I would avoid for birds out of these 5 papers is Baohong cold pressed. It's much better suited to landscapes and other themes. Have you found the perfect paper that you like the most for painting birds? Let us know in the comments.